Welcome to the Dashboard Effect Podcast. I'm Rick Thompson.
I'm Caleb Oakes.
Hey, Caleb. I wanted to talk about, well, both of us wanted to talk about the power of good data models. Mm-hmm. And I thought I'd just start with sort of an illustration of things that happen to executives who are using BI. You know, imagine you're a sales executive and you've got really nice reports showing you sales by category in Power BI, and you can slice them and dice them and get different time periods, and you just love them. And your company just launched a new category of sales items. And so your reports are showing by category, but you're not seeing this new category. So you call up the guy in charge of BI, whoever that might be, CIO, hey, can you get this on this for the report tomorrow? I've got a board meeting on Friday. Mm-hmm. And you hear, oh, sorry, that's going to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And often the reason it's going to take that is because you've got a bad data model. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about, you know, what makes a good data model, and what are some of the pitfalls? What are the things you should avoid? What are the tempting shortcuts that you got to just discipline yourself not to do?
Yeah. I mean, I think that just to go on that example, I mean, I think that's a good way to describe what not to do, right? So if you can imagine, like, that table that you're talking about, you might have, whatever region on the left-hand side, and then you've got all of your different categories, product categories across, the table, and those are all showing you the amounts, right? And then you're waiting for that next one to kind of show up in the table. What probably has happened is the model behind the scenes, it may be modeled okay, probably not if that's how it came together, but it probably looks like you've got a summary of data, and it's by region and by date, and then you just summed up in your SQL or your backend and whatever data is feeding your tool, when this product category equals bananas, then sum the amount, right?
Yeah.
And you've got 10 of those.
Yeah.
So then
in other words, you have one of those for each category.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got bananas is an interesting category. But let's say your grocery store. So you got a fruit category, you got a bread category, you got a pharmacy category, and let's say that your store just added automotive, repair things.
Yeah.
So that would be the new category. And in the example you're giving, and make sure I'm getting this right because I may not be, you're saying if you've set up your data model that it's very category specific, it's going to add up the fruit and add up the pharmacy, and you don't have measures to add up automotive repair parts, yep, it's just not going to show up.
Yeah, you don't have measures, you don't have the column, you just don't have the data, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it takes 2 weeks, because somebody's got to go in there, they got to figure out, okay, how do I pull this automotive stuff into this table that I've created and make sure the summing is right and all that stuff. So that's just not a good design,
And it's not good because it doesn't automatically extend itself.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So on the flip side of that, the right way to do that would be to have, and this goes back to kind of very fundamental, it's really data warehouse design, like having the data at a transactional level, like the lowest grain you can feasibly do, right? And I think what's tempting for people is as they start building data, they kind of start to get like, oh wow, this is a lot of data, because they've never really seen like a lot of data. So like 100,000 rows, that's like too much. So we got to like summarize it because they're used to Excel, right? Like I think Excel maxes out at 1 million or something. I can't remember what it is now. I haven't done that in a long time, but so you get over 1 million rows and it's like, wow, there's no way Power BI is going to handle this, right? So, and when in reality, you're not going to run into, you got to know what you're doing, but Power BI can handle poorly structured data and millions of rows of it. Okay, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's why it's tempting for people to do that, right? They'll start to summarize it, so it's less data that they're dealing with, and then they just end up in this bad spot where their model is completely inflexible, and it's taking way too long to do very simple things.
Yeah.
So the way you want to do it is you set it up, very granular, and you've got your typical star schema. You got your product, and you got your sales, and then when a new product category comes in, automotive, it goes into the product table and it's got a relation back to your sales table, and it just starts to show up in your report, right?
Yeah, you have a column chart. There's now just another column, just shows up.
Exactly, just starts to show up.
Yeah.
And that's really what you want. So then not only does that make that easier and it just shows up, but it makes your life as a developer way easier, because in the other scenario, you've got like a measure for fruit sales, you got a measure for pharmacy sales, and now you have to write a new measure for automotive sales. And as long as the data is back there, then it will start to flow in. This, you just have sales, and you just plot it by category. Right?
I mean, that seems obvious. How would you end? To me, it does. I don't know. What's the temptation that would cause a developer to do that modeling the wrong way?
Yeah. So there's what I just explained, right? Where it's like, okay, it's too much data, right?
Oh, so they're worried about too much data. Okay,
that's I would say a common one.
Okay.
There's other ones though too, right? So if you're just kind of getting started with a tool, you may not know all of the capabilities of it yet, right? So in order for you to make like a table of data with region on the left side, and then you've got all of your different category sales across the top, let's say you don't know how to use like what's called a matrix in Power BI to be able to do that, right? And if you do use a matrix, it'll do just what you explained with the bar chart. When you get a new category, it will just pop up, right? And just show up. But if you only know how to build a table, and you only know how to put measures into a table, it will not automatically do that, because you have to add measures to the table. So now you're thinking, okay, well, even if you've modeled it correctly at this point, you've got fruit sales measure, you've got pharmacy sales measure, and you've got automotive sales measure, and you've got to add them to the table manually, right?
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's kind of a twofold thing is what we're getting at here with good data model design will make your life easier, but same with report design, right?
Yeah.
Making sure you're using good visuals and you're using kind of understanding what the point of it is, and then leveraging your good data model to be able to make your reporting life easier.
Yeah, okay. We got kind of stuck on my example there, but are there other things that you typically see where data models go wrong other than something like what we just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the big issues that I used to see a lot. I haven't seen it so much anymore, but I used to see quite a bit is the same data in different places in your model. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is the example that's coming to mind is we had a data model where you had invoices and you had like the invoice lines, and it was nice. It was the right structure for an invoice table, like invoice fact table. But then we had like a invoice dimension, which had like the header information for the invoice, and then it had the total invoice amount in that table.
Oh, that's weird.
So theoretically, you should be able to sum up the fact table to get to that invoice amount, but it just didn't make any sense.
The dimension is almost a fact table. It's weird.
Yeah, it made things actually quite confusing.
Yeah.
And it was just it was really weird. And then you start to see people do really weird stuff with that dimension. They're like, well, I need to get total invoice value, so they sum it from the dimension, and then they have to do some weird stuff to make it respect dates. Anyway, it can just be a real problem. So really the best practice is to have data only show up at one place in each table, right? So that sounded confusing.
No, I think I think I understand. So if you have invoice data, it's really common in the transactional system to have an invoice header table and then have an invoice detail table that has all the products and so on.
Right.
I think, and correct me, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but you're saying don't do that in your data model.
Yeah, stick those together, right? If you need things from the header, put them onto the lines.
Yeah.
And then put it into your data model. Same thing goes for things like customer names and stuff. Like you shouldn't have a customer name in the fact table and then a customer name in the dimension, right? Because it just, once you start to do that, then you just open yourself up for like, well, why is this working this way? And which one is this? I don't, it just gets very confusing, and it can cause more issues than it may seem like it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a normalization, denormalization judgment call. Mm-hmm. And finding the right amount for a good data model might be totally different from the right amount for your semantic layer on top of a data lakehouse and your serverless views.
Right.
Probably not actually, because you're getting so close to the data model at that point. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see some other ones. Oh, that's pretty good. How are we doing on time here?
Oh, we're there. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a ton of them. This is something we can come back to too. It was kind of a technical episode. We've done 3 technical episodes today, so hopefully people will enjoy that. And I guess that's it. We'll wrap. Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks.
All right. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You can visit our website at bluemargin.com for more insights and resources. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.